talkradio.nyc.
It's your boy, Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector. Top of the house, just below the roof, in the attic, philanthropy and focus. I just scurried down, grabbed more coffee because if you know me, you know I need more caffeine in this body. Keep putting in more caffeine. Let's go, baby. Let's go. 2 flights up from the kitchen where I get that coffee and underneath the roof in the attic. Philanthropy and focus is the name of the show. I am Tommy D. I've been at this game now for 228 episodes. That's a bunch of Fridays in a row. Every single Friday morning, I make this journey up to the attic. Leader of another important nonprofit organization doing great work, as I like to say, and I'm here to help them tell their story and amplify their message. And that's what I do, man. I mean, tonight I go out, I'm being honored at Options for Community Living, Death of a Gangster, a Mafia Marriage, Murder Mystery event. I have 7 different outfits. I don't know which one I'm going to wear yet for that event because now I'm feeling like people are going to be looking at me while I'm there. So 200 and some odd people coming out to support Options for Community Living, which is an organization serving people living with HIV and AIDS, people experiencing mental health issues, serious and persistent mental illness, people experiencing homelessness. Right out here on Long Island, that organization is doing the important work. Shout out to the team at Options for Community Living, my friend Yolanda Urbano-Gross, the CEO, my friend Melissa Pulcinelli, who's been doing such a great job working and collaborating with me, who runs development and philanthropy at that organization, and all the folks on the front lines at Options doing the great work. Thank you. I'll be there tonight. Captain Bill's out in Bayshore, Long Island, and little North Shore boy goes down to the South Shore tonight. We're going to figure that whole thing out. My new friend Ted is with me. Before I continue to rant about a couple of things, I want to say good morning, Ted. What's up, man? How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Buddy, I'm great. I'm great. That is the voice of Ted Sahos, who is the executive director, founder of Project NYC. And anybody who has some freedom with spelling things is somebody I want to be friends with. Focus is spelled Phocus, and project in this case is Projekt. Project, baby. All right, let's get after it in a second. But you know what? There is one other thing. Before we get into it and talk about the important work, I got to shout out the New York City Imagine Awards, which is the event is coming upon us very, very soon. And you and I will talk about it because we need you next year to definitely put in an application for the work your organization is doing. And if the internet would hurry up and show me, I would tell you the date exactly of the nonprofit award. So the New York City Imagine Awards are October 28th. It's a Tuesday evening. Gustavino's, which is right under the 59th Street Bridge. It's beautiful. What a great place. 6 to 10 at Gustavino's, 5th annual New York City Imagine Awards. And I've gone through the finalists. I'm not going to read them off now. Go to nycimagineawards.org, nycimagineawards.org. Ken Serini, Kellyanne Serini, the team at Serini and Associates, my partners at Vanguard Benefits, always been big supporters of the nonprofit sector, specifically the Long Island and New York City Imagine Awards. All right, put that aside. Reach out to me, by the way, though, if you want to connect and get in the room that night. TommyD.NYC on the Instagram. And then you can get me on email, TommyD@philanthropyandfocus.com. How do you spell focus? Well, without an F and with a PH. That's how you spell it. All right. Talk about things that are spelled differently. Ted Sahos is here. Even your last name is spelled a little differently because it doesn't start with it doesn't start with an S. So it starts with a P, does it not?
It does. It does. It does. It's a Greek last name, so
Yes.
complicated.
I love it though. Throw in some extra letters, even if they don't make any noise. We like that. Let's do that stuff.
Right, right.
Ted, I'm glad we connected. We connected through the Queens Chamber of Commerce. We were at an event at Tiegerman School, which are friends of mine out here in Long Island, and they obviously over in Richmond Hill. They have a high school over there. They had that Tommy Hilfiger store. They had the Calvin Klein store where these young people are learning about retail. And I got to be honest with you, I felt like I was a thief because I picked up a couple of hats. They were like $10 each. I picked up a hoodie that was like $19 and it was like really primo stuff. Shout out to Calvin Klein. I think it's PVH, Philip Van Heusen Company that did that great work. Talk about collaboration with the for-profit, nonprofit. Well done, PVH, and all the work you do for the team at Tigerman. All right. That is how Ted and I met. And now we get into the show. So I gave Ted a little bit of the business right out of the gate before we even turn the cameras on here, as they say, because I am wearing a Last Chance Rescue. Shout out to Last Chance Rescue, Animal Rescue out here on Long Island. I'm not wearing a Project NYC shirt. So what I was saying was, Ted, we got to work that out. We'll fix something.
Yeah, I'll have one in the mail to you right away.
My man, I love it. That's it. That's it. Hey, you know what? I learned a long time ago from a coworker of mine. Closed mouths don't get fed, gang. You know, if you don't ask, the answer is no. All right. So you got to ask for things in life. So Ted, I want to know about you, man. I want to know about your background. I always ask my guests, tell me your story. What drew you to the work? You and I have talked about this ahead of time, so you know where we're going with this. But I don't even really know you, man. I know about the organization because we met. We had one or two phone conversations after connecting, a handful of months back, as I said, in Queens. So first, for one last thing, shout out to Queens. Definitely my favorite borough, man. I was the first year and a half of my life. I lived in Belrose, Queens, and then my wife and I got married. We both Long Island kids, but we got married and we moved back actually to Belrose, Queens. Shout out to Glen Oaks Village if you're listening, Glen Oaks Village, like they're listening to the show. So Queens is definitely my borough. By the way, let's go Mets. Very important weekend for the Metsies. Very important. 3 games against the Marlins and see if we have a postseason. Ted, Queens, Astoria. Tell me your background.
Uh, Listen, I was born and bred and still live in Queens. I'm in Astoria, as you may know, and it, I've been here my whole life. I've raised children here, um, and one of the things I discovered when my kids were young was how to find opportunities for them that was outside of school, right? Because I believe that whatever they did outside of school was just as important as in school. Because I realized that a lot of learning that young people do while it is in school, there's also things they learn outside of school, and the things that you provide for them to do will teach them a tremendous amount of things. And and back in those days, those opportunities were very difficult to find, and mostly based around Manhattan.
Let me ask you this. Did you and I know a little bit about that, what you're trying to, what the organization is about. And I love how as far as I'm concerned, that's very entrepreneurial. You see a problem, you see a challenge in the marketplace, and you say, how do I fix that? Now, you're talking about when your kids were growing up, but if you go further back, so first of all, you know, Greek guy from Astoria. Wow, you're like one in, there's probably not a lot of those guys, right? Just if you know, you know, gang. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, Google Greek Astoria, Queens. You'll figure it out. But I thought, those of us who get it. But like you're growing up in I guess what, like the 80s or something like that. Like when you were growing up in the neighborhoods and stuff like that. If you're saying raising your kids, you didn't see the opportunities for this type of stuff. What about your upbringing? It probably was less.
Listen, in my upbringing, there were 30 kids in the neighborhood, and we ran around and caused trouble.
Yeah.
And we ran around and tried to find things to fill up our time. And sometimes it was productive, and sometimes it wasn't. Right. So we played sports, we did other things, we worked from very young ages. Right. So like when we were back then in those days when we were young, summer would come along. My mother would throw the daily news at me and say, "Find a job."
Yeah.
Right? You're not gonna sit around here all day and just watch TV and do this and do that. And that made an impression on me, right? When I had my own kids, because I go, what are my kids gonna do? And as things go, there are opportunities that are better than working at a manufacturing plant like I did when I was 13 in the neighborhood, or doing other stuff like that. There's other stuff that you could do that maybe push the needle a little more for the future success of what these kids want to do. Now, sports has always existed, right? So like kids could play
Yeah.
sports and this and that and the other thing, but there's also other things that they could do to fill out the rest of their time if they have any time. And there's a lot of kids that don't play sports. So that kind of stayed with me. And when my children were 11, 12, I decided that I'm going to get these kids involved in internships and volunteerism and these types of things because I think it teaches them a lot of things. And I think it teaches them how to be better people. It teaches them how to be responsible, teaches them how to be professional in work environments, and teaches them resume building, interviewing, teaches them a lot of things that school just doesn't do. So I proceeded on that path, and I got a lot of heat from my parents for it because they were like, "Why are the kids working and they're not getting paid, or they're not this or they're not?" Because they don't understand. Like they're from the old country, right? They don't understand the value of these things or the resume building concepts that I understood growing up. Not seeing these things from other people that I met or interacted with as I grew up.
Hmm.
Because I would always ask, like, what did you do in the summers? What did you do in your winter breaks? What did you do in your spring breaks? What did you do after school? Like, if I were successful people, I would ask these questions about how they grew up, and a lot of times it was like internships and volunteerism and other types of activities that revolved around, you know, personal growth, academics, um, other things that were just very enriching and put them in positions where they were successful. And I wanted to replicate that in my own situation and when my kids grew up. And also now that my kids are grown and out of the house, I said, you know what? I think this might be something that people need, because it's not something that everyone has ready access to. And again, it could be something that people just don't uh, think about as much. Life is busier now, right? Two parents, or they're working, or it's a single parent and they're working and they don't have time to think about these things or research these things or spend the hours looking for these opportunities. And I figured that, there might be an opportunity here. And based on the response, it appears that there is. And I'm very happy about that. And I'm very happy to provide these opportunities to these kids. And we move forward. And, we're doing great. So.
We're going to get into all that in the programming and things about the organization. But I guess like, your background, did you ever think like in your other parts of your career, maybe we could touch on that. And did you think I was going to be like, I want to open a nonprofit. I want to found a nonprofit, talk about that.
Well, I was always involved, even at a young age. I was involved in volunteerism and helping people. I was very involved in the local church. I don't know if you're familiar with St. Demetrius in
Okay.
Astoria. It's an institution.
Yeah.
I was involved in their young adult leagues and their youth leagues, and we did a lot of like charity work, such as collecting clothes and feeding the homeless and doing stuff like that. And that kind of experience inspired me, and I wanted my own children to have that type of experience. And as it turns out, they've become people that are very charity focused, volunteer focused, helping people. And that just doesn't come naturally, right? Like you have to be exposed to it. I always said, I have this thing where like you could have the best soccer player in the world in Queens. Let's say there's a kid who's the potential to be the best soccer player in the world in Queens. If he never touches a soccer ball, you'll never know.
Yeah.
You'll never know if that kid is ever going to be that. And it's important to expose, our young people to as many opportunities as possible for them to kind of like learn it and gravitate, and they'll do it themselves. They'll gravitate towards the things that resonate with them the most. But you, as the parent or the teacher or some other mentor, your job is to kind of expose them to all these positive opportunities and let them make the decision.
Yeah.
So it's a thing that grows. It grows inside the young person, and in the end of the day, what you do is you you find the best in that person.
Yeah. I think a big part of what I'm hearing you say, Ted, if I could reflect back, is exposure and access for people.
Yes.
Like I was at so I have four children and I was at the back to school night for the high school last night. And you know, I got I got a junior in that school and I got a freshman in that school. And I'm just gonna say what's on my mind because kids are trying to be everybody's trying to fit in, right? And everybody's trying to be
Right.
like whatever cool means, right? Whatever that is,
Right. 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 Right.
And like there's so many opportunities for these kids, whether it's this club or the foreign language club or the community service club, man, or the chess club or whatever. And I remember being that guy who was like, yo, I'm not joining these clubs, man. That's not cool, whatever. And now I'm like the guy going, man, I wish I joined those clubs, man. You know what I'm saying? And like, and I try to communicate that to my children. I mean, I do communicate it. I try to have them actually understand what I'm saying, because like there are so many opportunities, especially where I'm at. I'm on Long Island, where there's the kids have access to plenty of different resources, whatever, right? And but Dad, I don't want to be in that club, man. That's not cool. I'm like,
Right.
actually, I wish I could be in that club like now, man. Like I wish I had the time, like
Right. Right. Right.
it's an interesting thing. So if there's young people listening, this is a time in your life when you can try stuff out, man. I mean, I'm
No,
fighting,
absolutely.
you
Like
know?
I'll give you an example. Give
Tell
you an
me.
example, Tommy. I went to Brooklyn Technical High School. Right. I'm in Astoria. I went to Brooklyn Technical High School. I'm on the train 45 minutes going, 45 minutes coming.
Yep.
My experience at Brooklyn Technical High School wasn't the fullest experience I could have. I didn't. I went there at 3 o'clock. I was running out the door.
Gone. Yeah.
Gone. I
Yeah.
want to be back on the block. I want to see my friends. I wanted this and that. That was a mistake. Later
Same.
on in life, I realized that was a tremendous mistake. There were
Yeah.
so many opportunities after school, doing stuff with the school, so many programs that took advantage of nothing, of nothing. And one of the things I said, when I had kids, is I said, I want these kids involved in the school. I want them doing stuff that the school offers. And I made it plain. I said, listen, I want you to look at the clubs. I want you to do this, and you need to do something.
Yeah.
Because if you're not going to do something there, you're going to do something here.
Yeah, I'll tell you,
You
man,
know?
it's so funny that so I went to a place called Chaminade High School out here on Long Island, all boys Catholic high school. Um, and I didn't get involved either. Very infrequently did I get involved. And they used to say people be in the 240 club. You know what the 240 club was? When 240, you got on the bus and got the heck out of there. And that was like a miss, man. It was like, it was just looking back, man. Like I think I did a little bit with like the yearbook club for a minute, and there was something my old man would drive me in the morning, so I got there pretty early, and I reflect back on this, and it's probably I hadn't realized over the years, but there was a club where people would bring in canned goods, food, right? It was like a pantry, and it wasn't a pantry for any of the students because you had to pay to go to the school, so most of the students didn't really need to come here getting any food, but it was a pantry for the neighborhood, and they would take stuff out to different parts of the community. And I remember, I had forgotten for years, but I remember this about 4 or 5 years ago. I would go there in the morning, and kids would bring in food, and you just pack it in boxes or whatever. And it was like 30 minutes, 20 minutes before school started. Um, and but there was so much opportunity that I didn't take advantage of, and not to mention one thing, it's the exposure, it's the connections, but excuse me, the exposure and the experience. But one of the biggest things as a guy who's the nonprofit sector connector, bro, it's the relationships. Man, it's like
Absolutely.
we're doing this thing together. We're involved. I mean, the only thing I really was involved with, and I kind of got tapped to do this in I guess the end of freshman year, going into sophomore year. I was in something called the Parish Religious Education Program, and I went out to the community on Wednesday afternoon. So I was a public school kid before I went to high school. So I was a kid who had like we used to call, they still do probably CCD, like which was religious education. Like Wednesday afternoon, the public school kids would go to the Catholic school and they would, you'd get religious education. Late,
Right.
so I got that growing up, and then later on, I'm that guy, 15, 16 years old with a colleague teaching these young, like probably like fifth graders and stuff like that. But that was all I really got involved with. But there's so much opportunity, man. And again, to your point, like we look back as adults going, man, I kind of missed the boat on that. And that sucks to look back. And I'm not big on regret, but that's one of the things I would say I regret, man, because what could have been, what could I've gotten into? What, see, the thing to me too is like, you see like these things that are like robotics, right? Dude, I don't know anything about robotics, right? But like, if one of my kids got into that and like was fired up and juiced about that. Now my boys are both athletes, and my younger daughter, she's doing the cheerleading, whatever, but she's an athlete too. But if they were into robotics, man, that's like, and they get like really fired up and juiced about doing
Right, right,
that. What trajectory? Now I'm like, dude, I thought I was like a baseball guy. Like if I'm one of my kids, I thought I was a baseball guy.
right, right, right,
Oh, like this robot stuff is super cool, man. And I wanna,
right, right, right.
it's just, I think it's everybody's trying to, like I say, fit in, look cool, where it's like, I don't really, I think being cool is just being you and doing you and finding things you're into. What do you think about that?
No, absolutely. Just to go back a little bit on the networking, the networking is highly overlooked,
Yeah.
right? The networks need to begin early and often.
Yeah.
And it's twofold, right? So the networking is both mentor based, where you're gonna meet people, that want to help you, that are going to help you, they're going to teach you stuff, that are older than you. That's one part of it. The other part of it is you're going to be interacting with other kids,
Yeah.
and those other kids are going to be interested in the same things you're interested
Yeah.
in. And those kids will you're going to grow up with those kids. You're
Right.
gonna you're gonna be you're gonna be friends with those kids. And then what happens is, as your network grows, especially amongst your kids and mentors, um, opportunities start coming to you.
Yep. Yeah.
Things start coming to you. And then it becomes a situation where you're like, oh, I think I could do that. No, I don't want to do that. I could do the other thing. And you start picking and choosing what you want to do, this and that. And your five friends that you like are in this, program, and you would join that one because I want to be with them, and it'll be fun doing that, or this and that. And then you get to, and then it proceeds, right? Then you get to college. And I can't tell you how
Let's,
many.
I want to leave it there. We got to take a quick break. I totally
Oh,
botched this. We're way over. When we come back, you're going to tell me about college and what those relationships are all about. Tommy D, Philanthropy and Focus, Ted Sahos, the organization's Project NYC. Right back.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a purpose-driven individual looking for deeper healing, clarity, and growth? Welcome to the Expansion Room, a transformative space for purpose-driven individuals. I'm Siobhan Larice, host, licensed therapist, and coach. Join me every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Join Tommy in his attic. Cut through the static. We got to move fast. I just kept us going. I was so, what it is for me, kryptonite for Tommy D is to break up anybody when they're networking. To hear a guy talk about networking and then I got to stop that, that's like double kryptonite. If you don't know what kryptonite is, I can't help you guys out. All right. Google kryptonite, Google Superman, and text me. We'll figure it out later on. Ted, we're talking about networking. We talk about the power of like being involved in those clubs, and even as it is at a younger age, but as it elevates to college. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so the networking is highly important, and people don't realize it until it's too late. You get to college, your network grows, and just a perfect example, like people that have strong networks, when they graduate college, they're not they're not blind. They're not in the dark. They have friends. Friends tell them, I'm working here. The other person says, I'm working here. There's an opening here. There's an opening there. You should put in for this. And they are your internal recommendation at those organizations. And people don't realize that a lot of hiring happens this way.
Yeah.
Where someone in the organization knows someone, they tell them to apply, and they're inside the organization telling the hiring managers and all these other people that this is a good person. I've known this person for this many years. They're very intelligent. They're very qualified. And in my own in my own son's lives, this has been something that's repeated over and over and over again. I can't dispute it, because all their opportunities that come to them because of a friend or a mentor or someone else that they had met in the past, they have a good relationship with, and they present them with these opportunities. Now, you as a student or the young adult doesn't need to take those opportunities, but you have these options in front of you. Whereas if you didn't do any of that, like, so many of us growing up, we didn't really think this way. We didn't have this type of level of network, right? Our network was usually, somewhere else or in the neighborhood or something like that. We didn't have these professional type network where we met these people under professional type settings, and we were doing work together that was either, philanthropy or volunteerism or internships or other things that, end up becoming highly important because, all these people you meet in those realms think like you, and they're friends with you, and you have coffee with them, and you have lunch with them, and you hang out with them, and it's more than just a cold, professional situation that evolves out, as out of network. I mean, me and you, we just ran into each other at the high school, and it was amazing, and I'm so glad that I met you, and I look forward to doing great things with you in the future. And this just, you need to activate this. People need to activate this part of themselves, even if they're shy, even if they're this. And the best part of doing that, if you're shy and you're not that type of person, is to involve yourself in events and organizations and programs where you're going to be with other people your age doing interesting stuff.
Yeah. Such great points, man. I didn't even want to interrupt at all because you're so right on, and you're like, it's so much that I talk about. Man, every so often a young person or their parent will reach out to me and say, Johnny or Susie just graduated from Hofstra, Johnny or Susie just graduated from Queens College or NYU or whatever, or they didn't graduate, and they can't. Let's just stick with a college graduate because they're college graduate and they cannot find a job. Now, first of all, look, I'm not going to talk about college right now. We're not going to do that on this show. But what I am going to say is, well, I guess I am going to talk about it. We need tradespeople, gang. Not everybody needs to go to college and get a 4-year degree. We need plumbers. We need electricians. We need carpenters. We need these people. All right. I'll put that aside. There's plenty of great careers in the trades. Talk to me on another show, gang. But it's a very important piece. But what I was going to say was, Johnny or Susie, and can you talk to them, Tommy D? And I'll jump on a meeting, I'll jump on a Zoom with these young people, and they'll say, I'm just sending in these resumes. And Ted, you and I know this. They're sending in these resumes, and for all its goodness, AI, right? And all its challenges, AI. But AI is looking at these resumes, and a human eyeball is never seeing these resumes, right? So in your example, what you mentioned, your son, you have 2 sons, your sons, you said, right?
Yeah, 2 sons.
So you mentioned your sons and their network and their experience and how it's paid just great dividends for them in their relationships. Somebody's tapping somebody and saying, hey, look, you should come in here. And then their internal going, this is my guy. This guy is aces. Or my gal, she is aces. We got to get him. Versus somebody, behind their desktop, firing off 100 resumes that are going nowhere. it's all about networking. That's why I say this all the time, man. I say to young people, like when they tell me this, hey, I'm graduating, I'm looking, I go, you're on LinkedIn, right? I want
Yes.
to know that they're on LinkedIn right away. I want them on, I'm telling you, my oldest is 16. I'm telling you, I'm like a year and a half, 2 years going, you need a LinkedIn profile because we gotta start getting, because I think that now I'm 47 years old, man. There was no LinkedIn when I was in college. But I live on that thing, man. If I'm Googling LinkedIn somebody right away, checking them out.
Right.
And that's a big part of what it is too. That's the network, that's the relationships, man. Because many of the opportunities, meaning job opportunities, career opportunities that people get were never even posted. Or if they were posted, the people who responded never got anywhere because there was the connections were already happening behind the scenes, as they say, right?
No, absolutely. To hit on the vocational point, you know, and I know you didn't want to talk about the nonprofit yet, but a recent opportunity that came up to us, Astoria Park Alliance was doing their classic car show on October 11th, and they reached out to us if we could provide volunteers. And we sat down and had a meeting. We said, we've never done something like this before. What do we do? And then I said, you know what? There's a guidance counselor at Thomas Edison, Miss Rosario, where Thomas Edison, they have automotive programs. I go, we should get these automotive kids to volunteer and interact with these classic car owners and learn about cars, learn about how they.
Ted. How dare you? You sound like you're a connector. What are you doing, sir? What are you doing on my show? This show is not about connecting. What are you trying to do? But that's exactly the thing. So the Astoria Park Alliance is having a car show, and you go, okay, who do we know? So go back to
Right.
Thomas Edison, right? You call
Yeah,
it.
so a lot of high schools in Queens have automotive programs in Brooklyn and Bronx and Staten Island and Manhattan, and we go, these kids need opportunities as well to be exposed to things that are within their lane, within their thing in the field that they're studying. And that has led us to network with auto repair shops across the city, car dealerships, in a whole different direction, right? Yeah. And I'll give you an example. So now the network builds, right? When these people want to finish high school or finish their technical schools and get a job, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm their network connector, right? I'm their mentor. I have no issue reaching out to these people and saying, listen, I have a good kid here. I have a good guy that could work for you, this and that. Do you have any openings? Or if they come to me with openings. And this happens already on the other side with just like regular internships. We get that all the time, right? People are coming to us and saying, listen, we have an internship. We're looking for a good group of kids that could apply and this and that. And I put our volunteers forward and I say, listen, this is a good opportunity here for you to get engaged. And I'm willing to throw my reputation behind you and push you as hard as I can. And a lot of times when that happens and they see an organization like us behind the person, we're doing the vetting already, right? We have vetted this person. We think they're great. And we think that they'll be a great fit for your internship, your job, your this, your that. And it 10 times out of 10, it works.
Yeah.
I've never had a situation where it didn't.
We got to do a quick commercial break and we come back, but I got to give a quick shout out. I don't know if you ever met my friend Audra Forden. Audra's like third generation, owns Great Bear, mechanic shops, garages. Right. But she also runs a nonprofit called Women Auto Know, and they teach women and men how to fix their cars and maintain their cars and things like that. Gang, the website is Women Auto, like automobile, womenautoKnow.com. That's her nonprofit. I'll share it as we go to a break. I'll share it on the video. But like Audra should be at this event with you that we're talking about on October 11th, which we are going to continue to talk about when we come back. So we are now going to get into the organization. When we come right back from this break, we're going to get into, you had this idea, you saw this opportunity, and now there's a nonprofit doing this work. We're going to get into that when we come back. How's that sound, Ted?
Sounds great.
All right, right back, gang.
Misalignment within your sales team or with a client stalls deals and creates unnecessary friction for you and the client, resulting in up to 37% lower win rate. If you're in pre-sales, sales management, or sales enablement, and you'd like to increase revenues, win rate, margins, client satisfaction, and stay competitive, this show is for you. Hi, I'm Art Fromm, host of the Making Seamless Sales Show. Please join me live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marcanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Join Tommy in his attic. That's me. This is the attic. This is the show. Philanthropy and Focus. Check this out. Project NYC is a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Astoria, New York. Astoria, Queens, that is, for y'all. Shout out to Queens. Let's go Mets. The organization is dedicated to empowering NYC middle and high school students through community service, creative expression, and civic engagement. Through internships and hands-on initiatives such as youth-led contests, volunteer projects, and literacy programs, Project NYC helps students develop leadership skills and a passion for making a difference, and also making a nonprofit that excels on networking and relationship building and connections and really getting folks opportunities down the road. Go to Project NYC, gang. If you want, projectnyc.org. Spell it this way, PROJEKTNYC.org. All right, Ted Sahos, we got a little bit about like your vision and what you're all about, man. And I'm fired up, and I'll tell you, it was great that we got to meet, and it was only a couple minutes we got to chat because there's a lot of people
Right.
that day. But I was like, dude, we got to keep in touch. Let's do this. And I'll tell you, this platform, Philanthropy and Focus, and In Focus Production, my production company, the whole thing has really afforded me the opportunity to make many, many more great relationships with people who lead nonprofit organizations. Because yes, we got a great business, Vanguard Benefits. We do employee benefits, specifically focused in the nonprofit sector, Vanguard Benefits Hall of Fame, all that. However, when I get to meet somebody and say, hey, listen, you know what? I got a weekly show. I could get you on there and talk about your nonprofit. It's how do I say it? It's a pretty good setup. It's a pretty good setup to build relationships. So Ted, let's get into this. You saw the opportunity with your kids. They were younger. You wanted to make sure there was more opportunity or access to opportunities of volunteerism, as we said, civic engagement. What happens when you start to talk about it and start to create this thing?
So what ended up happening is that the kids grow up, and then I find myself and I say, you know what would be a good idea if there was a nonprofit doing this? And what I realized is post-COVID, a lot of these opportunities are a shell of what they used to be for some reason. Like a lot of things fell apart after.
What do you mean by that? Let me ask you what you mean. Like there had been opportunities for young people and they're no longer there. Tell me about that.
I think they were more robust and young people were more apt to engage. And something happened where they didn't engage as much. And what you had was a lot of these organizations that provided these opportunities are large, they're cumbersome, a lot of bureaucracy. And I think they're finding a difficult way back in order to engage these young people in a meaningful way. And we're